Hey guys, welcome back, and if you're new here, I'm Joanna and I make videos about kind of all sorts of random stuff. So take a look at my videos and hopefully you will hit that subscribe button. But anyway, today I was going to do kind of a chatty video. In fact, I already tried to do a whole chatty get ready with me, which is why I have more makeup on than I normally do, because I had this whole get ready with me. And unfortunately, when I went to go check on the footage, I guess I didn't hit record because it's not there. So I'm an idiot. So today what I wanted to talk about though is a topic that I've been thinking about for a while, and a commenter actually asked me to make a video on this, and so it was like well timed because I have been thinking about it. And that topic is career. Now, I don't want this to be like a serious video, which is why I did or intended to do a whole get ready with me chatty format, so I'm gonna keep it still kind of chatty, except now I'm not doing anything other than talking to you, so fail. Okay, when it comes to career, I will first say about me that I am a pretty visually creative person, and growing up, art was always something that I enjoyed and did, but then, you know, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, so I knew if I wanted nice things, I had to make the money to get those things for myself. And, you know, art doesn't pay the bills, as our parents are wont to say. So I was pretty practical about my college selection and what I majored in college and what I came to do afterwards. Because I am also pretty book smart, it wasn't like, you know, art was my only path out. I actually ended up going to a really good school, an Ivy Plus school for undergrad, and like my other practically minded classmates, there were really three options that I can recall coming out of undergrad, and that was either law, medicine, or finance. I think today there are a lot more options because, you know, you have more information available to you. You see on YouTube the different careers that people lead and they're very successful in, and also you have more of these successful technology firms. I think back in those days, like 2006, 2007, I think people were still kind of in a hangover from the dot-com crash of 2000, 2001. And so I think unless you were living in California, very few people thought it was a viable option to go out and go work for companies that were just starting up, like Facebook, which is such a shame because I actually have one friend who went to Facebook after college in 2007, and she literally worked in an entry-level role for 2.5 years and is now retired. So that just goes to show it's better to be lucky than good. I am definitely a little bit bitter. No, just kidding. I mean, not really. I'm definitely bitter. Anyway, now as far as like why I chose to do finance, I mean, it was kind of a twofold thing. I knew for sure I didn't want to go into medicine because I've never been interested in like the human body, anatomy, anything like that. And then when it comes to law, the reason I didn't go into law was because I didn't want to do grad school at that point. I just didn't want to go straight from undergrad to another professional school and get a master's in anything. And so there I was, you know, working this job that I liked okay, but I didn't love it. And after a couple of years, I definitely got bored of it. It's just, you know, I never have been one to read the Wall Street Journal for fun, for example. It's just not something that I seek out as entertainment for myself. So yeah, it definitely wasn't the best fit. It was fine, but I just didn't love it, and it didn't inspire me. And so after a couple of years, I actually took time off, and one of the good things about that job is you do earn good money, especially the bonuses, and so it's more than enough money for me to like take some time off and do something that I did really want to do, which was travel. So I took a year off and did this whole like backpacking thing, which is, you know, very common for young people to do, and came back. And honestly, when I came back from that, I could have taken some time, been introspective, reflected on what I really enjoyed in life, and pursued a career other than the one I had been on. But this is the funny thing about like making money, is once you start making a certain level of money, you have expectations and you don't want to go back and start over. And this is really a hindrance, I think, for a lot of people, because you just get stuck in this vicious cycle of pursuing what, these monetary gains, when really, if you took some time and thought about things, you might realize that there are other ways to have an enriching life. So unfortunately for me, I came back and went back to finance, and again felt uninspired and bored very quickly. And that is when I decided to go to business school. Now, if you go to a really good business school, I think of it as kind of like a get out of jail free card, so to speak. You get this, 2 years off from traditional work, because not only do you get to take this time off, you also, especially if you were in a career that you weren't loving, it's a way to transition laterally, or not take a huge cut or jump back in your career if you were to transition to other things. And obviously this is like within some parameters. You're not going to go from a financial analyst to business school and come out a creative director, but you can come out a senior marketing manager or something like that, something in a different adjacent field that was not one that you were in before, and you don't have to start over from scratch in an entry-level position. Now, when I was in school, I was still not sure. I, again, didn't learn from my lessons of the past and didn't take the time to really sit down and think about what I wanted and what made my life enjoyable. So I, again, took kind of the common route of going into management consulting. Now, management consulting is definitely not a bad choice. There were very smart reasons that I chose to go into this field. In particular, this field, first of all, if you don't know anything about it, there is a TV show called House of Lies, not to be confused with House of Cards on Netflix, but House of Lies is on Showtime, and basically it's about management consultants, and obviously it's dramatized and glamorized, but in essence, that is my job. And so I go around with a small team, and large corporations, typically large because we cost a lot of money, so to afford us, they generally are quite large. And so these large corporations hire us on to solve a problem for them, and it can be problems that range the entire gamut. So I've worked in tech strategy, I've worked in consumer products supply chain, I've worked in airline organization. I've worked across the gamut in different types of companies and different types of functions and industries. And that was why I wanted to come into this field, because I knew I didn't want to do finance, but I wasn't sure exactly what I did want to do, and this was a good way to get exposure to a lot of these different roles and get exposure to them at a very high level. One thing about management consultants, we are typically advising very high-level clients. It's the CEO, or maybe it's the SVP, or another, very senior person in an organization who will have the okay and the budget to hire a team like us. In the course of this job, I have learned a ton, and one thing that I've also realized, especially in interacting with a lot of these senior people, is I definitely don't ever want to be them. It's, growing up, I think a lot of people, we just think if you are smart and ambitious, you think, okay, I want to be CEO. I want to be Marissa Mayer or whatever, You want to have this high, powerful role in a large corporation, make a ton of money. Who cares what it is they actually do, but those are the things that you see in media, and it's certainly something to aspire to. But now that I've actually had the experience of working with a lot of these people, I also know that that's definitely not something that I want. For example, one of the things that I have come to realize is, especially as you get higher up in these large corporations, your entire job, your entire life consists of meetings, back-to-back meetings with all your different subordinates, with all your teams, with external consulting firms, whatever it is, you're just in meetings all day long, making tough decisions on work that you just have to trust is accurate. And for me, I enjoy doing. I enjoy solving problems. I enjoy doing things, and not nearly as much do I enjoy kind of leading others to do things. It's not that I'm bad at it, but it's not something that I'm just naturally excited about. You know, I think that's just, you know, personality types, and it certainly comes into play. So yeah, I think I came to this realization that I'm just not that ambitious, at least in a traditional sense of ambition, how you see ambition manifested. And I'm okay with that. You know, in college, I took a class on happiness, and so it was a philosophy class. We read a lot of current philosophers, psychologists, and, you know, not non-contemporary ones, and just kind of their views on happiness. And two concepts really stuck to me. And one is this idea of the hedonistic treadmill, which is this idea that as humans, we are infinitely adaptable. So we adapt to all conditions and return to kind of a steady state of happiness or unhappiness, as the case may be, depending on your own personality and disposition. An example of this is if you are a victim of a car crash and you lose a limb. You know, initially for a few months you might be depressed, but after a few months, after a couple of years, you're rehabilitated, and your mind actually returns to its pre-accident state of well-being. Similarly, for lottery winners, you know, you initially have this immense high, you are thrilled, but then after that's over, your body adapts, your mind adapts, and you're back on the hedonistic treadmill, wanting to get that next hit of happiness. I mean, it kind of sucks, because it does mean happiness is ephemeral, it's fleeting. It's not something that we can rely on to have, and so what you can rely on, though, are to fill your life with things that are going to be personally rewarding and enriching. And this is then the second concept that I recall from that class, which is this idea of flow. Now, this was coined by a contemporary psychologist. I'm not going to be able to pronounce his name very well because it is a really hard name to pronounce, but Mihail Csikszentmihalyi. And he described flow as basically this idea of, you know, being in the zone, so to speak. It's when you are working on something and you are engaged, you're focused, your mind is engaged, and time just flies by. You don't know the hours are passing, you are just so absorbed and into the work that you're doing. And this is kind of being in flow. And his advice in his essays in one of his books called Finding Flow is that we should seek jobs, lifestyles that enable us to achieve flow. And for me, being in flow is definitely not leading a team through difficult decisions. Like, that is just not where I get my flow from. I'm much more the type of person who enjoys kind of working on problems myself. And I guess, you know, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm totally fine with that being my personality, and kind of setting aside those ambitions that I had, those naive ambitions that I had when I was younger about, you know, what I wanted out of life and what I wanted out of my career. I mean, for me personally, there are just other things that I enjoy and care about more. So how this has translated actually with my current work is, so as I was saying, with management consulting, you are in a career that's pretty much like a feeder to one of those senior levels of management in a large corporation. And since I now know that I absolutely don't want to do that, I recently made the choice to kind of cut back a bit on my own role. So whereas before I was client-facing and traveling 4 days a week, I am now in a role that I'm focusing on an area that I really enjoy, and that's customer experience, building my expertise in this particular area with far less client focus. So this has been awesome because I've had such a better lifestyle. That's what's enabled me to have like more time to do things like YouTube or paint or tennis. I mean, all of these things that basically I did not do when I was actively client-facing, you know, for the week and working oftentimes 80, 90-hour weeks. Now I'm working like 50, 60-hour weeks, which is still a lot, but it's much better and it's much more flexible. It's on my terms. I don't know, what am I saying? I don't know, I think I just kind of went on this long tangent again about other things. So my point is, you know, try to be introspective about like what your personality is and what you might truly find fulfillment out of, find flow in. Like, what are the things that you do today that you do just pass the time so suddenly and are not bored and are really actively, mindfully engaged? Like, what are those things that you do? This was like a really random video and I don't even know what I'm saying anymore, but hopefully you found something interesting here, and yeah. I will talk to you guys soon. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye.